Hello again, rail fans. When I first began rail fanning on the level that I do now, I quickly discovered that the two-way radio and the scanner were a big part of that. Listening to the railroad's two-way radio chatter gave me a much bigger understanding of what train crews were doing with all that going forward and backing up and stopping for so long. Listening to the dispatcher conversations opened up a much wider view into long-distance operations, how trains got authority to run over specific tracks, and all kinds of little factors in railroad operations. The railroad radio is easy to listen to with any consumer scanner, or even easier, online scanner sharing sites like Broadcastify. But receiving signals is just the beginning. The real trick is making use of what you're listening to, understanding the jargon, the lingo, and the regional accents. Let's take a Saturday rail fanning trip in early November, and I'll show you just a few of the things that I've learned over the years.
We pull into Wildwood as our first stop. The main lines and yard tracks here are very close to the highway, so it's easy. At one time, Wildwood was an all-railroad town. Seaboard Airline was the #1 employer here. Not so anymore. Wildwood still has action, though. This morning, we're here to intercept a southbound freight we just heard on the radio. Just then, he trips the defect detector at Oxford, just a few miles to our north.
CSX detector, milepost 756.8.
We have to assume he's coming southward toward us because I have not heard anything on the radio on my trip up here from the south. Wildwood Yard is still working, handling mostly rock business that supports all the concrete for road and structure building in Central Florida. There's also covered grain hoppers for chicken feed. M441 daily mixed freight out of Waycross for Tampa's Yeoman Yard.
CSX detector, milepost 756.8. No defect. Repeat, no defect. Total axles 396. Detector out.
The defect detector identifies itself by location. Milepost 756.8. We're at the 761, so that DD is a little more than 4 miles back to our north. The report tells us there are no hot axles or dragging equipment detected, and that all 396 axles of his train are back there. All good. The consist includes 28 loaded auto racks for Tampa's Drew Park Yard. Florida's new car and rental business is warming up for the winter season. Now let's hear him call out the next signal on the radio.
21 is clear Wildwood, track 1, 5423 southbound.
The recorder clipped off the first part, but he said M441. That's the train number or symbol. Next, he said clear Wildwood. Clear is the aspect of the signal. In this case, it's a high green, and the indication is clear track ahead, proceed. Wildwood is the name of the signal. We're at Wildwood. Track 1 means we're in double track territory, and he's running on the west side main. The east side main is track 2. Engine 5423 is just that, the locomotive number. Those are the big numbers below the cab window or the black and white numbers above the windshield or on the nose. South tells us the direction his train is running. This is an important part of finding trains. It tells us if he's coming toward our location or moving away from it. Out just tells us he's finished talking. Listen to it again to see if you get it.
21 is clear Wildwood, track 1, 5423 southbound.
Deciphering calls like this one takes some experience in listening. He's talking fast, everything runs together. That conductor has probably done this same call 100 or more times since leaving Waycross early this morning, and now he's nearing the end of his trip.
CSX does this strictly for safety, and in my opinion, it's a strong rule. Analog two-way radio on a designated channel, which everyone working around this main line should be listening to. When this train calls out every signal he passes, his train, engine number, and direction of travel, it lets everyone on or near the track know where his train is and where it'll be next.
After that, I made my way north through Ocala. Always like to see that 1950s era underpass that carries the S-Line over US 441. To my knowledge, there are 3 of these just like this one in Florida. here and 2 in Tallahassee. Before long, I'm snooping around Jacksonville, which is almost always busy with a train somewhere, usually more than one. This is the SP Line from Jacksonville to Baldwin, ex-Seaboard Iron. This is the Stockton Street crossing. The signal is Honeymoon Crossover.
712 to 03, CSX engine 1. Slow approach, M Yard South, McQuaid. Track 2 to 1 to the Honeymoon.
Okay, that was train P71203. P for passenger, 712 the train number, 03 for the originating date. This is Saturday, November 3rd. Slow approach is the signal aspect. M Yard South, McQuaid, is the signal location. He's on track 2, but moving to track 1. Listen again and see if you get it.
712 to 03, CSX engine 1. Slow approach, M Yard South, McQuaid. Track 2 to 1 to the Honeymoon.
This is the CSX office car train. I know that because CSX-1 is one of CSX's F40PH models that they use in office car service. I'm not sure what the move was here. He pulled down from Moncrief Yard and around the Honeymoon Y, apparently to shuffle the position of this car in the train.
Slow approach, north end, Honeymoon crossover is U712, CSX1 north end.
In just a few minutes, another train comes in and wants this same route.
That's 130 Moncrief Yard.
Go ahead, that's 130 up.
Brief that was the dispatch. You ready to depart? Okay to do so?
Got you a lot. You guys have a good trip, over.
Here we go, 130 out.
It's S-130, some kind of special move, most likely a military train. Got you a light is railroad slang for I've contacted the dispatcher and he's created a route that will signal you out of the yard and onto the main line. The signal indication is slow approach again. Slow speed over the turnouts, then proceed, prepared to stop at the next signal ahead.
CS 13002, got a slow approach, Honeymoon. Downtown leading main line. 3310 over.
That's the train's engineer IDing his train, S-13002, originating November 2nd, confirming the signal aspect is a slow approach, the name of the signal, Honeymoon Crossover, and that it's routed to take him from the Chinatown lead to the main line here.
Brickyard lead main line.
All right, correction. It was the Brickyard lead to the main line. S-13002 is, in fact, a military train, about a mile of empty flat cars pulled by a GE ET44AH and a GT ES40 DC. He's coming out of West Jacksonville Yard about 2 miles to the west and heading up to Moncrief Yard. The reporting marks on these flat cars give away their ownership. DODX is Department of Defense. These trains often come into Jacksonville's Blunt Island terminal to transfer big military vehicles to and from Navy ships. From above, you can see how he's coming out of the yard on the Brickyard track, then just past the signal entering the crossover onto the main line and the Honeymoon Y, which takes him to Beaver Street, McQuaid Street, and into Moncrief Yard.
All right, Randy, I'll go tomorrow. Thank you, Archie. I got your message, by the way. I'm trying to get out of the way.
And you're doing a fine job of it.
Well, thank you, sir.
S 13002, 3310, leave. Slow clear, Beaver Street.
Lined up, just 20.
The railfan in me wants to believe that's a new industry track they're building on the loading dock to the right. But I'll bet it's something involving drainage or communication lines or such. This area of Jacksonville used to have a tremendous number of boxcar customers, every one of them with their own track and loading docks. Just 2 blocks to our south is a remnant of the golden age of retail freight railroading. Here at Dennis Street, the old Atlantic coastline, now the CSX A Line, swings from east by northeast to hard northwest. Speed limit on the double-track main is 15 for passenger, 10 for freight. It's a sharp turn. Looking southward toward Orange Park and Sanford, there is an industry lead that looks to still be in service. until you drive around on the other side of that fence and see the rails go right into the grass before they enter Harper Street. No danger in parking on the track here. Apart from it being Sunday afternoon, this track hasn't seen any business in 20 years. But in its heyday, the Harper Street lead had as many as 8 active customers, each with its own turnout and track leading to its own loading dock. The railroad business is all gone, and even though they've removed the switch mechanisms, the rails and frogs remain in the street. It's likely that Atlantic Coastline developed this area to attract these customers. The Seaboard did the same thing along its main line. In fact, many of these customers had tracks from both the Seaboard side and the coastline side. Just in case one railroad got too expensive or its service fell off, they could easily switch to the other. On my way out of town, I stopped at Baldwin Yard, and while there was nothing moving, I did see this oddity. Now, what kind of locomotive is this? The nose is clearly an EMD. But check out that radiator on the long hood. That ain't EMD. It's an old SD40-2 that was refurbished by GE Wabtec and brought into Tier 4 emission compliance. It needs that larger radiator to achieve the Tier 4 specs. The model below the cab window is SD23T4. It looks like those old SD40s are going to be around in some form forever.
It also has a smaller engine than the old SD40-2s, makes a little more than 2,300 horsepower. There's an excellent video on YouTube that delves deeper into these refurbs. Check out V12 Productions' channel and his post called Weirdest New Locomotives. But be careful there. V12's got several hundred really good railroading videos on his channel, and you could easily lose track of time and find yourself watching them all really quick. Okay, I hope this helped out a little on learning, understanding, and making use of the railroad jargon over the radio. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below, or comments about anything else you can think of. I read them all and try to reply to as many as I can. Hit the like button if you like this video, and share it with your friends, please, if you liked it. That's a big help also. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that, and let's make plans to join up again somewhere out there on the high iron. And until we do, this is Danny Harmon, out.